General, let's zero in on the South, what Russia has achieved overnight and what they have not.
Yeah, Brianna, what I'd like to do, Nick's presentation was excellent. He's talking about what's going on. There's confusion down there. I'm going to take a look at this from a battlefield geometry standpoint because these maps don't tell the whole story. It is 400 miles between Mariupol and Odessa. These are large cities. Odessa, third largest city in Ukraine, 1 million people. Mariupol, about 500,000. Kherson, about 300,000. Mykolaiv, about 400,000. These are big towns. So when you see this red and Russians saying they control cities, they don't. You know, the 190,000 forces that Russia said they had surrounding the border, you put them all in this area and they couldn't control this spot. So the red is Crimea. They had forces there before. But as they expand outward, it's going to get tougher and tougher. The hardest military operation to do is an opposed landing on a beachhead for two reasons. First of all, there's the initial assault on the beach. I won't go into the arrows and the circles of the tactical place. But once you establish that beachhead, you have to start expanding it outward in order to get supplies in and reinforce the troops. Nick's reporting that they are stealing food from stores tells me they don't have the food supply. If they don't have the food supply, they probably also don't have ammo and fuel. So as this gets bigger and bigger and the red seems to emanate outward, it's going to be much tougher for the Russians to control this area. If they say they're controlling Kherson, I would suggest they ain't controlling jack. They've got a big fight in front of them, and there's a lot of Ukrainians, if they can sustain their guerrilla operations, that will fight them in this area.
So look, we have been looking more broadly at Ukraine. There's been this increase in heavy weapons and targeting of civilians, or certainly being indiscriminate in how those weapons are used, and they are killing civilians. Can you just take a look at what Russia is being cost here? I mean, there are certain principles. There's a sort of formula when you're a nation going to war of things you're trying to achieve. And I found it very interesting talking to you that actually they really haven't achieved these principles.
Yeah, you look at the strategic objectives of Russia coming into this. Mr. Putin had some end states. He wanted to subjugate Ukraine. He wanted to further divide NATO. He wanted to take advantage of what he saw as divisiveness in the United States. And he wanted to establish an economic strength by blackmailing with oil. He has failed, in my view, in all four of those areas. And he has become a pariah on the world scene, and it's getting much, much worse. You've seen a divided NATO turn into a very united one, where even non-NATO states like Sweden are saying we're going to support this operation, and the rest of NATO has come together. Germany's now saying they're going to pay their 2% of the NATO requirement to be a member. So all of those things are turning around. You saw the president's speech last night where both Republicans and Democrats were standing up in support. You see the desire to support Mr. Zelensky in his fight, and the Ukrainian people are coming together. When you see a bunch of other nations waving the Ukrainian flag, you know that Russia has lost and Putin is getting worse. These are the principles of warfare. What I would suggest, and I asked them to make this slide for me, what I would suggest is they have failed here, Russian, they have failed here, they have failed here, they have a terrible maneuver. They don't have command because it's separated between about 6 different axes. The Russian forces will increasingly lose security. They have lost surprise based on us telling the world what they're going to do next, and their plan certainly wasn't simple. So Russia's military is violating almost all of the principles of war that soldiers like me study.
Yeah, war for war's sake should not be an objective here if you're just thinking rationally as Vladimir Putin, but that doesn't mean that he can't inflict serious pain and serious suffering and a serious cost for Ukrainians.
Correct.
General, thank you so much for taking us through that.